Welcome, everybody, to Parts Hold. I am Christian Lafferty. This is our resident parts expert, Coach Cliff Honeycutt. And today we are going to talk about ways that the parts department can make customers happy. We're also going to talk about Cliff's long-awaited arrival back into Los Angeles and why you should never chew tobacco and gum at the same time. That and much, much more coming up today on Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.
Man, is it nice to have you back in Los Angeles where you belong.
Where I belong.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, you walk down the streets with that beautiful North Carolina accent and everyone's like, yep, I'm so glad this guy is here.
For sure. It's good to be back. Good to be back home, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
Second home. Third
That's
home.
right. My girlfriend was very worried about you eating today, by the way.
She's so sweet. She's so kind. You cannot leave that house and be hungry.
Yeah.
It is impossible. I will never forget leaving for the airport one of the times, and you had gone somewhere. We dropped you off, and we were going back to pick you up, and so she took me back to get all my stuff together. She made sure I ate, and I was like, I can't eat no more. No, you got to eat on the way to the airport. I mean, she made sure and taking care of me. So it's so great.
If you leave full, it's a miracle. The story she loves to tell about is not about you eating though. It's about the seatbelt.
Dinging?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even ask me to put it on. Yeah.
So my girlfriend's driving Cliff to the airport, and Cliff's talking to his wife and kind of just getting all the stuff settled for when he gets home and everything like that. And my girlfriend's Toyota is, I don't even know if obnoxious is the right word, but it is like, I don't know if any of you that have Toyotas, like the seatbelt warning chime is, it sounds like DEFCON 5. Like literally the world is going to end. And so Cliff's on the phone and Claudia's like, hey, Cliff, could you put your seatbelt on? The noise is about to happen. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. And he goes right back to talking to his wife. And then she asks like another couple of times. And then finally she had to let her rip on you because there was a terrible noise in the vehicle, so right?
But you know that it goes through a series of 10. I don't know if anybody knows that or not.
I don't know.
I wouldn't tell you how I know that, but there you go.
Good Lord, that warning's so loud.
Yeah.
And then obviously the office looks a little different too, doesn't it?
The office looks great and under construction and changing and renewing and
yeah. So if you hear any of that construction stuff in the background, this is an active construction zone.
It is wild.
Yeah.
Wild to me. So they almost dropped me off at the wrong place. Speaking of active construction places.
Oh, really? Where'd they try to drop you?
Down the street. And I looked it up, and it was only like a 2-minute walk. But then I looked at all the stuff that I walked through. I chose not to do that.
Yeah. And you're like, wait a minute. I didn't know that our office was a dispensary.
Yeah. Right. Well, I told the guy, I was like, man, this isn't the right place. I'm not trying to, override you or anything, but this isn't the right place. There's a place that's under construction across the street too. And
yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Los Angeles, though, and you being here is that there's no cats allowed in the city. There's an ordinance.
Well, that's not fair. That's not fair at all.
Maybe there's no ordinance. I don't know.
Cats are wonderful creatures.
Yep. That's what you say.
Maybe I should bring mine out here one time. Like a show and tell.
Yeah.
Bring a friend along.
We could barbecue it.
I'm not into that.
Yeah. I think if you didn't know it and I seasoned it right, you'd love it. Maybe not. No, I'm pushing the boundaries of our friendship right now.
Sure,
so,
you were pushing the
but we've got a really cool topic today. I'm super excited about this because just from your unique perspective, right? So talking a little bit about Cliff's work history. So he started out in the parts department, working the counter, driver. You've done essentially every job in the parts department, right?
That's right.
And up to and including being the parts and service director. And I love your unique perspective to it. Even so, to coming to coaching, you still have a very unique perspective of how things go in the parts. But without further ado, what's today's topic?
So I'd like to talk about how we can control the customer experience. It's a really, really big thing out there right now when you're talking about how things are measured and customer service index scores and all that within the dealership that's taking place now. But from a parts side of it, sometimes we're left out, and sometimes we don't think we have any control over it because it's not really, we're not kind of front facing with that, I guess is maybe a good way to say
which
that.
is really funny. So when Cliff and I talk about the topics before we film the show, and I'm like, but parts department, do they really see themselves or identify themselves as, as having anything to do with CSI? And you're like, and your response was that the manufacturers are kind of forcing that.
Yeah.
So even if the parts department's not directly tied to CSI, they need to get prepared because they will be, is kind of what you were saying.
I think the great communication that opens up with inside the store in the different departments is going to be key. Again, the manufacturers are really pushing hard in it. It's not going away.
Right.
We were laughing amongst us earlier talking about Google review. I can't say that really good.
I think
Google
you just said
reviews?
it. Google review.
But I feel like it kind of jumbled together. Was that just the accent thing? Right?
Probably just the accent.
And then Yelp as well.
Or it could be that you have dip in. Are you dipping right now?
No dip. There's no dip in this mouth.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. That is a Southern thing.
Have you dipped?
In my lifetime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long has it been?
Oh, it's probably been 25 years.
No kidding. I think I've dipped once or twice, and both times I puked. No one told me the first time I did it. No one told me you weren't supposed to swallow the juice.
Oh my God.
So I thought it was like gum, right? I feel like it's bubble,
the good news
hubba
is
bubba, but no, it's terrible, and it makes your stomach hurt right away.
You wouldn't have worms though.
Great.
So, funny story. I worked with a parts guy who put gum on one side and chewing tobacco on the other.
What?
Yeah, and he didn't spit all day. He didn't have worms. You never smelled it on him.
I have respect for those people. I actually, believe it or not, I also really like the smell of like the dip menthol-y smell, which is super weird. I also like the smell of gasoline, which doesn't make any sense, but oh well.
We could chase this rabbit hole for a really long time.
We can, but we've only got a certain amount of time on the camera today.
So let's go back to reviews and customer experience and how that's getting pushed hard. And then from the parts side of it, can we control it? Do we have any contribution to it at all? So that's kind of where this kind of comes from. And going into stores, there's some really good parts managers out there that understand that they have a role in this and they have a way to support it.
Yeah, I think that, you know what? I don't know if I've ever seen a Google review for a parts department.
So I was at a store recently that had a Google review.
Were they soliciting it? Like, were the employees getting something for doing it?
Not at this particular store, but I like the idea of that. I've never thought about the...
Me neither. I'm just kind of spitballing it.
But. I mean, if you think about it, when you go into a department store or a sporting goods store, they're often giving you the receipt and asking you to fill out the survey.
It'll say it, or they'll circle it too.
Yeah, so they're getting something, I would assume, back for that.
What do you think about putting that on the counter invoices?
Oh, I love that idea. Down at the bottom where they're like run specials or whatever.
Happy with your experience today? Share it on share a review on Google.
You could even do a QR code. I've seen a lot of those at advisor desk, just sitting there, and they go ahead and ask the customer while they're standing there. So you could do the same thing at the parts counter. Have a QR code. Hey, could you go ahead and give me a quick review?
Yeah. Well, you could make a case that'd be a great way to build the wholesale business, is off of word of mouth. So I don't know, just the food for thought out there.
And this one's going to sound a little bit, maybe there might be some folks out there who might think this is kind of more a preachy topic kind of deal, that we're kind of preaching to them, but I just really want to do it more as a teaching
Would
thing.
you like me to refer to you for the rest of this episode as Reverend Cliff? Pastor Cliff?
I got my doctorate in parts.
Attaboy. All right.
Let's do this.
Parts in Scientology?
No Scientology, but parts, yes.
Well, you're in LA, so.
Well, while I'm in LA, yeah, B is in LA.
Okay, just so everybody knows, if you're listening to this and not watching it, Cliff has been trying to start this list for 5 minutes, and I keep interrupting him.
At least.
So we're going to hit back. Go ahead with your list, sir.
Let's do this. Number 1, we want to be informative, but not too much. And there's people that I kind of thought about this, a particular group that I thought about when I was writing this out. And it was kind of your old parts guys, your really old school guys that had a great customer connection and could get a great review. Sometimes those guys were, oftentimes they wanted a repair, and they would tell the customer what they needed to do or what they should be looking for. And I always felt like that they were trying to repair the vehicle, and that should be left up to the guys that repair vehicles, not to the parts guys.
Yeah, like it's hard to fault. They're just trying to help, right?
Well, I think we're gonna get into this in just a second with one of these other ones. So there's a fine line here of being too much information, and I'll give you a real example. And this happened when I was just a counter person. And so the gentleman that I worked with that had the chewing tobacco and gum.
It's funny how that story's coming full circle.
Yeah, let's call his name
Melvin.
Melvin. Sure, we'll use Melvin. I'm down with Melvin.
Okay.
But Melvin had a ability for particular model vehicles to offer customer suggestions on how to fix them, instead of it going to a repair facility or coming in the service department. Either way, one particular instance, he had the customer back the car to the phone and put the phone by the tailpipe.
That's
I wish I
great.
could say I was making that up, but that is factual.
Who says you can't diagnose over the phone?
And there was several people that laughed about that, but he told the customer
great.
what to do. So I think that there's a fine line there, right, between getting and trying to repair the vehicle for the customer, or just providing them a part.
So what would you do? Would you just coach your counter people on saying we're experts on the part when it comes to the installation of the part? That's where we kind of draw the line.
Yeah, because I think you can get yourself into a really bad situation where
There's no win.
there's
I
really
think.
not. There's really not, and there's a lot of I would say aftermarket places out there that kind of push that and have their counter guys do that. I just would want to keep my counter people away from it.
If you go into AutoZone, right, and you have they do the free check engine scans or whatever it is, right? So at the end of the day, they'll scan the code and then they give you a list of like
Yeah.
the 5 parts that you should buy to do it. I just don't feel like that's the best thing for the customer, because they could have to buy the 4 parts to get to the 5th part in that particular
If
case.
you think about some of these ones where there's an evap leak on it, it could be a gas cap, it could be a
The
valve,
canister,
it could
exactly.
be the canister.
Yeah.
There's multiple things there. So I think in protection of yourself, I wouldn't want to get into a situation where I'm giving too much information out.
Yeah, there's definitely times, even on the service side, there was probably times I gave out too much information over the phone.
Yeah, I think service advisors
that's-
can be really bad about trying to fix the car and drive, and I don't want to fix the car at the parts counter.
Yeah, I like that though. The way you label that: inform, but don't over-inform.
Yes.
Good one.
Absolutely.
All right, what else you got on
So
your
number
list?
2, and this tag team's on it, but you're going to answer the question. That's kind of the way I phrase that, is answer the question. The customer's asking a good question and they're needing information, answer their question.
That's funny. That's something that I see happen to Chris Collins all the time, is that he'll ask somebody a question and then go into a 10-minute answer that has nothing to do with the question he asked. So is that what parts counter people do?
Yeah, I guess one of the funniest things that's happened to me with Chris is he asked me a question, and when I was thinking about the answer, he rephrased the question, asking the same question, but I thought he was asking a different question, so I answered a different question in my mind, and he said, that's not the question. so it's the exact same thing. But yeah, that's exactly it. Like, just answer the question, because sometimes I think parts can go into, we often want to give information out, and they're
They're trying to add value to the transaction.
I think there's some counter people that want to give out too much information to maybe help.
Yeah, but with the best of intentions.
For sure. Absolutely they do.
So that's pretty good. So answer the question. Don't get sidetracked. If someone needs specific information, don't feel like you have to over-deliver on that information. Let's keep it really simple.
Yes.
When it comes to our communication with the customers. It's like, don't assume that they're asking for more than they're asking for.
That's right. That's
okay.
right.
So that's really good. That's a good number 2. And then what else you got on there?
I got notifying customers. So I think sometimes we tell a customer, hey, the part is going to be here on Friday, and we just assume that they're going to come on Friday. But I think we got to notify them. I think we got to go a little bit beyond, hey, it's going to be here Friday. We've got to let the customer know when that part arrives, and that it's here, and we can do it multiple different ways.
Yeah, you know what my favorite way to let the customer know about their part arrival is?
I feel like there's a joke in this, but
It sounds like a joke,
it
doesn't
does.
it?
It does.
But my favorite method is whatever method they tell me. So
Oh.
I don't assume a call or an email. Maybe it's a text.
Asking them why they're at the counter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
What's the
great.
best
I
way
like
to get a
that.
hold of you on Friday when this thing comes in?
Yeah.
Or even if nothing else, you could offer on the parts side. Could you offer a status update almost? Right. Like the part's due in on Friday. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a text message on Thursday confirming whether or not we're still on time for the arrival.
Well, and I think that, so when I was thinking about this notifying the customer, I'm thinking of retail customers, I'm thinking of wholesale customers, but I'm going to talk a little dirty here, but I'm thinking about service customers too.
Oh, yeah. So the funny thing is there, and we've talked about that on previous episodes, is that there's a weird thing that happens when it comes to the service customer side.
Yeah.
Like on a wholesale or on the counter, it's parts baby, right? There's no one else to point the finger at.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, when we get to the service parts, the fingers go in both
Yeah.
directions. Like everyone's pointing and nobody's doing.
Well, I feel like it becomes not my customer. I think is a lot of times the feeling that most parts people and parts managers would
Yeah.
say that it's not my customer, it's a service customer. I don't know. I feel like it's still my customer. They're still mine. They may have gone through an avenue of the technician, but they didn't. They're our customer, and so I want to notify them the same way. But I also want to notify the service advisor. That's another one that I was thinking about when I wrote this out, was the advisor themselves. I want to let the advisor know that the part's here, and I want to let them know, just as you were stating a minute ago, I want to let them know multiple ways too, whether it's by emails or maybe there's a
Printouts or
notification
whatever, yeah.
in there or a printout. But I think if we are not careful and don't take the ball in our own court, we're just going to leave that money sitting on the shelf. And as a parts manager, I don't want to leave that money sitting on the shelf.
Yep. I think that that's one of the things I always say is you can tell how healthy a parts department is by looking at their SOP bin.
Agreed. See
Good
how
stuff.
neat it is. Yep. And then the last one kind of goes, these kind of piggyback on themselves, but the last one is I want to keep the customer in the loop. There's a real thing happening out there in every manufacturer. It's the dreaded back order.
Yeah, that happens.
And back orders are real.
Yeah.
I've gone into a couple stores recently and they'll show me a list and there'll be 80 part numbers on that list. And it's wild to me that the back orders have gotten as bad as they are and the supply chains are hurting.
It's about as bad as I've seen it.
I don't think it's going to get any better.
No, I think it's just the world we live in, right?
I think it is too.
So speaking of the world we live in, I came across this piece of information the other day, and I wanted to share it with you because I think that it could change your life. Are you ready? You have to pay really close attention.
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Duck billed platypus. Platypus paid duck.
I don't know what he just said there, but I'm going to say, was that a question or you were just telling me?
I think that's the kind of thing tomorrow where you're going to be like, oh, I get it now. What did I say to start it?
Duck billed platypus?
Yep. And then what did I say?
Platypus
Paid duck.
paid duck.
So the duck gave the platypus a bill, and then the platypus paid the bill. I feel like you're not even smiling after I explained it to you. So
I just really don't understand it. It's
at
I
least
promise
one,
you
at
tomorrow
least
I
one
will-
person got that.
yeah. Well, there's probably people right now repeating that back to somebody.
Yeah. So the long story short, what the duck-billed platypus thing lets us know is that you cannot have a huge gap, right? You've got to talk to the customers on a regular basis and just, if nothing else, let them know that they haven't forgotten about you. But I think that there's also, when the back order happens, there's a frame that has to happen. That sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes 2 months, right? But I think that the better we frame that up front, the happier customer is about the back ordered part.
Well, I had a recent situation that I'd heard about at a store where a part was on back order for an extended length of time, and I mean an extended length of time, almost 6
Was it-
months, and
yeah.
the car was down.
I just had one that was almost a year back ordered.
Yeah, and was the car down in your situation? Yeah. My fear is when in those situations, and I know in this particular situation, the customer was being informed just because I was involved in everything. But my fear is that customer wouldn't be informed and that their car's just sitting there. And man, I can't imagine making a payment on a car that's just sitting there waiting for a part that's on back order and not knowing when that part's gonna.
Let alone making 7 payments.
Yeah,
Like, that's painful.
yeah.
Ugh.
And I even had a situation where at a particular brand, they said what's happening in theirs is they'll get a actual release date, and so they'll inform the customer they got a release date, and then that release date changes.
Yeah.
So it might go, hey, it's going to be here on the 14th. The 14th comes and it gets pushed off to the next month.
Yeah.
So that's happened a lot too. But I think we got to keep the customer informed. And again,
Over-inform would be my guess.
and when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the service advisors too. Like, maybe build a spreadsheet for them to be able to get in there and look at it and see it. I think is the best way to do that.
Yeah,
So
everybody's focused on it, then
Yeah.
the customer doesn't get lost.
for sure.
All right, cool. Recap it one more time.
All right, we want to give out some information, but not too much information. We want to answer the customer's question in every situation. We want to notify our customers and be informative. And then the last section is we want to keep them in the loop.
Yep, back orders are real. Okay, so hopefully that gives you guys a few tips on how to stay really customer focused as a parts department, and we'll see you next time on Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.